Straight out of Los Angeles, California.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
You ready for this?
What's up, everybody? This is Henry Amar.
Welcome to Making It Happen with Henry Amar. Henry Amar.
Make it happen. Life.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Making It Happen with Henry Amar. So I wanted to do an introduction to this next episode. I interview Alexis, also known as Miss Trenchcoat on the internet. She's also known as the Productivity Alchemist. And the reason they call her that is because she gives real-life tips, tricks, strategies to help people maximize their time and productivity. And I always say, if you maximize your time, you maximize your life, because it's something we don't get back. So how do we make the most of our time? And that's why I loved interviewing her, because she gives real-life practical things, like real deal strategies. And I love things you could actually apply. And since this interview, she's actually released a planner that was on the top of the charts on Amazon for a whole month after she released it. So super cool. Congratulations to her. And this was an interview after a long media day that she had at a small room in WeWork in Hollywood. But super cool. Hope you take at least one thing away, which I think you will, because I totally did. It totally rocked me. My friend even resent me this episode because I had him here earlier. He's like, hey, you should rethink this and apply this in your life even more. I was like, you're absolutely right. So without further ado, check it out. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Making It Happen with Henry Amar. I am super excited. I am sitting here with Alexis, aka Miss Trenchcoat. I am super excited because something that, as you all know, that I'm so big on is how we utilize our lives and how we make the most of time. And if there's somebody that can teach you about time and making the most of it and working smarter and not harder, it is Alexis. So everybody, welcome Alexis.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me, Henry.
Thank you. And I know she's been she's doing this documentary.
Yep.
And it's Productivity Alchemist.
Yep.
Right? And she's been doing press all day. So I'm super grateful that I got to sneak in here on this long day. So
yes, we had a full day press junket.
Awesome. And so you're from Philly?
Yes, I'm actually from Atlantic City, proper, if you were to say where I was born, Atlantic City. But yeah, I live now in outside of Philadelphia in Bucks County.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So this is awesome because Alexis for years has just dissected being productive and time management and how to make the most of your life. And, something I'm really big on when I see people, especially with a big following and influencing people, is not just getting people excited about something, but also giving them practical tools on how to accomplish what you got them excited about. And that's something I love about what you do.
Yep, absolutely.
So do you want to give them a quick rundown of what you do in your own words?
Sure, yeah. So as Henry said, my name is Alexis. I'm also known as Miss Trenchcoat all across the internet. I'm an online entrepreneur who designs and sells digital productivity tools to help you work smarter, not harder. So I have a following of over 80,000 on YouTube. I have a very popular blog, strangecharm.com. I run a digital e-shop where I sell digital printables and planner inserts and courses and just sort of different productivity classes and things like that. thecharmshop.com. And you can follow me on Instagram at Miss Trenchcoat. And for, like Henry said, the last few years, I have been what I call a productivity guru on YouTube, teaching people how to plan and be productive. But the way that I kind of take this, which is, mixing philosophy with strategy, I actually take an approach where, I try to get people not necessarily to hustle, right? I feel like that's the typical sort of, how can I get a whole week's worth of work done in one day? I've got 2 jobs and kids and this and that. And it's how do I fit it all in one day? My answer is not to hustle and use the strategies necessarily to really push yourself to get tons done. My philosophy is to, number one, prioritize yourself and self-care, especially for women. This is a really big issue, because women tend to be, and you probably have plenty of women in your life that you see being so giving and nurturing and putting themselves last as they are putting everyone else first.
Absolutely.
And so for me, productivity, it starts with making sure you're taking care of yourself, because you can't serve from an empty vessel, as they say.
I love that, yes.
So, for me, it starts with the self-care, and then it's all about being super clear on your priorities and getting really focused and being able to establish boundaries so that you can say, you know what, as much as I want to be helpful and I want to give to you, right now is not the best time, because you're not helping anybody by overwhelming your schedule. What you're going to end up doing is, if you say yes to everybody, trying to be a people pleaser, you're gonna end up messing up your own work and the work you're doing for other people. So it's just, I think it's just a better way to go is not to try to take on too much. And I think like in this world, you know, we all see how, you know, women, moms and things like that have a lot of different expectations that are put on them, and, you know, things that are really different a lot of times from men. And you know, you probably know, you know, you've seen like you had dad and like maybe like uncles and cousins and stuff growing up, you know, the men don't always have the same responsibilities the women do. Obviously they are like breadwinners and things like that, but and like defenders, you know, of the family and protectors, but you know, usually the women are the ones, you know, either like maybe working full time and being the one who has to like manage the childcare and like, you know, if, as you have aging parents and things like that, like you are the person who is that community center for your entire family. So, and then on top of that, stepping out into your community, into your church and like different organizations, women are the ones that literally, who runs the world? Girls. Beyonce said it best, right? So it's, you know, we really need to get really crystal clear on what our priorities are and actually focus on doing less, really. Is if you want to have more time, literally you have to let go of more things in your life. And, you know, through different scientific studies and things like that, I've really been able to see and show people and, you know, give them strategies to drop the things. Because a lot of times we think, oh no, I can't let go of this, or the world is going to end, you know, like I can't not do it, right? But the truth is that you can. And when you purposefully drop things that are just not a high priority to you, it gives you more time and energy to put your heart into the life you actually want, the things that you actually want to bring into the world.
Absolutely, I love that. That's so good. Because so many times I feel like we can stretch ourselves so thin, we stretch ourselves and nothing really gets the full fullness of ourselves.
And that's actually a really great analogy to say spreading yourself too thin, right? If we think about like, you know, putting like jam on a biscuit, no one wants to eat the biscuit with like no jam, right? You want like a hearty chunk of jam because it's like the flavor of life, really. So if you're putting yourself in all different buckets, right? You're not giving enough of yourself to what I say, go deep. Like I really prefer people going deep. I think that many of us live a very superficial, very shallow life. And I don't mean that in terms of like a judgment on morality or anything like that. I mean it more of we're not going deep into what we want. We're not really going deep into solving problems. You know, if you look at the media and news, it's like we cover this, it's like the 3-second attention span. Why can't we solve problems that we should be able to solve in our modern era? Because we're continuously like switching our head and switching our focus. We're not going deep on issues. So I think going deep is the most, you know, I think if you can do that, you're going to get such better results and you're going to feel such a sense of satisfaction, especially if it's something that is very important to you and like your purpose on earth and what you feel like you want to share with the world.
I love that. I heard you say something in one of your videos where you said, you know, all of us, when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and we honor that calling, you said we all have, like, you know, whether it's divine or spiritual guidance, or everybody has a guidance system, and we're working at it and we're consistent. And I think your words were, you know, if you're doing what you can, all that you can, and you're putting yourself out there, then things start to click. And what you're saying is also that I hear is sometimes life calls so loudly, right? And if you're answering everybody else's call, then you may be missing your call that may help so many more people.
Yes, the call that's like inside of your heart, like your own personal calling, right? And so I know for some people, you know, there's definitely a segment of people who really feel like they have a calling. And then, you know, this sort of philosophy that I'm taking to productivity could maybe help you drown out the noise of the world that's trying to pull you in every different direction. And I think there's also people who don't really know what their purpose is. And I would say maybe one of the reasons is because you haven't been able to really quiet your mind and body and take the time and space to go deep in yourself to hear what the calling is. Because, you know, I know for me specifically, it kind of took me a long time to kind of figure out what my calling was, even though I was on this path the whole time. It really was taking time to learn more about yourself, go deeper about yourself, have like a relationship with yourself to really figure out what that calling is. So if you are someone that knows the calling, awesome, you're like ahead of the curve. If you're someone who does not know that calling, do not worry, like make space in your life, make that white space, and it will come in time. And I think that when you follow, you know, your heart and where your true passions are, you know, a lot of people come to me and they're like, I don't know exactly what I want to do. I never say like, let's just sit at home and just like meditate, right? I think you should go out and follow your interests and try different things, because every time you go out there and try something, if you don't like it, then you go, okay, learning experience, I know that's not for me. I've like eliminated an option. But I think that you need to have that time and space to be able to evaluate what these different passions are, to determine like what you want your life's work to be. And your life's work can change multiple times throughout your life. But you have to have that space there, because if you're overwhelmed, you really get stuck in that space of kind of just doing the same thing, living very shallow, not feeling like very fulfilled with your life.
Absolutely. I love that. So I think everybody, especially I live in LA where everybody's busy 99% of the time, right? And I'm sure that's how it is across the world.
Busy is like my big bad word, like that busy. They're like, people think that they're being busy. They're like, oh, I've got so much to do, I'm so busy. But are you actually making real progress? Right. And the answer is most of the time, no. Like, busy is the biggest bad word for me. But continue, I just interrupted you.
I love that. I love that because one of my favorite quotes that I post up randomly on my Instagram sometimes is, busy, when people say they're too busy, they're just saying I prioritize something else over
Absolutely.
this.
And it's so funny, like when I talk to people and talk to students and I'm helping people find what their priorities are, they'll often tell me like what it is that their priority is or whatever, but they're like, oh, I'm too busy to do that. And I'm like, if it's really a priority, you should be prioritizing it. So either you need to get in alignment with what your priorities are, or you need to start actually evaluating, going in that direction. And I do find that a lot of people do kind of run and use busy as a shield because I think a lot of times people are often afraid of getting what they want in life. Like, what happens if I get it and it doesn't make me fulfilled, right? It's almost like that holy grail sort of effect. We always want to feel like we're chasing something. So if people actually, people are really, I think, afraid of getting what they want because they're afraid that if they actually get it, they'd have to be happy, right? Like, they have to be like, oh, well, if I get what I want, then I have to be happy, right? So I do think that we often use busy as a way to deflect our own fears and our own lack of confidence. And I don't mean that as a judgment to anyone who's listening, but it's really like if you are someone who does feel like you have a passion in a certain area and you're not going after it, what's holding you back? Especially if you're someone who's like, I'm too busy to pursue my music or my art or whatever this thing is, this public speaking or filmmaking, If you're too busy, what is it that's really holding you back? What's that block? Because that block, while it's there, you're never going to actually get what you want. Like, you're not going to get your fulfillment and you're going to be blocking any opportunity for the universe or God, whatever you like to think about, like the greater overall good. You're blocking, giving them the opportunity to hand you what it is that you want through manifesting it.
And I love that because you said as soon as you put yourself out there, and of course the fear is going to come in at some point, right? And I think it's how we frame fear and we understand it. And that's a totally different conversation, but it was so cool for you to say that as soon as you started putting yourself out there and doing what you could, it wasn't, I'm going to do this and I'm going to sit here and wait for it to knock on my door. I'm going to go out and do something with it. That things started to click for you. And it wasn't like it necessarily for you and your story, and I think a lot of people's story didn't just come overnight and come easy. It was, you're very consistent. And I watched it, I went back and watched your stuff and I was like, she was consistent. And it wasn't like I had to be perfect to start.
No, you never have to be perfect to start. Jeez Louise, think about it. I know so many people are afraid of getting started because they feel like they don't have the right tools, the right knowledge. They feel like they need something or to reach or achieve something before they can begin. But the truth of the matter is that there is no right moment to start anything in life, to be completely honest. And so get started now with what you have and you can make it work. Like when I started my YouTube channel, I was using a point and shoot camera, basically no lighting, it was just not, it wasn't something that if I was starting today would I think I was going to be successful. No, but it's the trial and error and actually, think about a pilot, right? I had to fly here, right, to LA from Philly. A pilot has to get in several thousands of hours before they'll actually give him a license, right? So he can't even have his job until he's tried it a whole bunch of times. So think about that. When I was getting started with my YouTube, it was just fun, following a passion. Of course, this was back in 2008 or 2009, I forget exactly what year it is at this moment, but back then YouTube was not the same as it is now. It really tremendously evolved, but back then it didn't really matter. I was just having fun, and then I found my rhythm with it, and then I found what it was that was my calling of what I was going to be sharing with people, and that could change. It can absolutely change, and I'm open to that. But as I grew and learned more and collected more resources and got more following, I was able to upgrade things. You don't have to be perfect overnight. So I think that that's something that people don't understand, is that you can get started now and really it's like a practice. And the great thing is about that, especially if you do not have a following already, is that guess what? If you make a mistake, no one's watching anyway. You have a very small following who's not really paying attention. And to be honest, no one is paying attention as much as you are. You see all of your flaws, but everyone else is oh, that was great. I'll put out a video and I'll be oh, I'm so disappointed by it. Everyone will be that was a great video. What were you worried about? I'm well, this, that, and the other thing, didn't even notice it. If you had, I still, you pointing it out, and I kind of see what you're talking about, but you are more hypercritical over yourself than anyone else is.
Completely. I was funny. I'll tell the story where one day I was like, I'm gonna do an Instagram live. I just felt like prompted to do it, called to do it. I turned it on, I did it, and I felt like it was the worst one I'd ever done. I was like, that was like really short. It was like 4 minutes. I just had this thought pop up and I shared it. And then I went off and I was like, oh, that was not good. And then I get a DM from this guy in India saying, I just want you to know you saved my life today because I was planning on this and what you said was exactly, I was like, not that it was me, but I just feel like when you're aligned and you just put yourself out there and anybody listening, you don't have to be perfect, you have to be you, and you have to be,
Absolutely.
The world needs all of us to step into who we really are, and then we evolve, right?
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, you have to remember about the Instagram stories, it's only there for 24 hours.
Right.
It's not like a permanent mark on your record, you know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna get like, Santa's not taking away the presents that year because you did a bad Instagram live, you know?
Right.
So it's just like, keep things in perspective. Like, in the big scope of things, it's not a big deal if you make a video and you don't like it. Like, you can delete it, you know, if it really is problematic.
Yeah.
And you never know who is going to be watching because, you know, you were called to make this. And
Absolutely.
I think whenever you're being a creator, I think that it comes from this like universal spirit where you're being called to create because someone is looking for that information.
Yes.
Like someone is searching for that.
I love that.
So they say like, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? So like you are creating because someone needs what you're creating. It's not even, it's honestly not even any of your business because that's, you just need to do the thing and let the other people find you. It's like not even like who's going to take that information and do what with it. None of your business. Like you just have to say your message.
I love that. And something I really love about you is you're just who you are. And what you see is what you get, and I love that because I watch your videos and I see it and I'm like, oh, I love that. This is who I am, and you share it, and you are who you are. And I think, you know, you're not trying to be anybody else, but who you are, and the best version of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's even funny with people will be like, okay, so what are you trying to do? It's like, oh, I'm trying to be like Oprah and Tony Robbins, but then I'm like, no, I'm not trying to be the next Oprah. I'm trying to be the first Alexis. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just stay true. You can have those role models for like the directions that you want to do and things like that, but I think that ultimately, especially if we're talking about like, you know, being a creator in a very busy, very noisy world, I think that the best way to stand out is to be yourself.
Absolutely.
So, you know, again, all the positives, negatives, it's none of your business, you know, how your following grows. Really, you just be consistent with your content and you learn as much as you can and put yourself out there and you will develop and grow. And eventually people will find it. I mean, I'll tell you a really kind of slightly embarrassing sort of story for me. You know, I started YouTube, like I said, I think like 2008. Yeah, I think it was 2008. Yeah, I think it was 2008. So I think YouTube 2008. And, oh, maybe, no, it was 2009. Totally forgot. Yeah, January of 2009. And it took me until, I think it was January of 2014 to get 1,000 subscribers. So it was like several years for me to get 1,000 subscribers. But once I hit that, and like at that point in 2014, I found my message.
Awesome.
And I found like my voice through like trial and error and like what I was feeling like called to do. And at that point, like that year, I think it was like 10 or 15,000 in a year. After like years took me to get to one. So it's like when you really, you know, once you hit your stride, especially if you're doing it consistently, you will start seeing the gains, you know, those will come.
I love that. And that's such a great principle, so stick with it. If this is what you love and this is what you feel like called to do, and just consistency and sticking with it, you don't know if this is going to be your break. I watch so many different people online, but Gary Vaynerchuk said, he said the one video don't release, maybe the video.
Yeah.
Maybe the one.
And that's so funny because I've had like I said before, I've had so many examples of I made a video and I was like, I was personally disappointed with it, and then it became the most popular video. There's literally a video that's like one of my most popular videos, has maybe like 750,000, you know, maybe like 700,000 views or more. I have no clue at this point. I almost didn't release it. I was like, it's so basic.
Right.
But everybody loved it. You know what I mean? You don't know. Like,
it's so true.
No one has higher standards about stuff than you do. And again, like I said, with the whole, like, it's not really your business. Like, what you already know the information, which is why you're sharing it, you know? But, like, you don't know what other people don't know. So let them find you, like, let them fill in the blanks. You never know what you're going to say is how people are going to take it.
Absolutely.
Like, it really is very important, too, like, because, you know, a lot of times in this day and age, work is very criticized sometimes. And so it is easy to be really afraid to release things. So when you do release your creations into the world, like, like a movie or like a piece of music or like a video, you know, you have to be okay with like letting it go and letting it almost be like a child, you know, like parents always want to control their children, but all you can really do is put your best effort into like preparing them from the world and then hoping that, and that's exactly the same thing with creation.
I love that. So anybody listening, just to extract the principles of this, because I think it's so important, is what is that thing calling to you? Or even if it's small or big, or what is that one thing that popped into your mind as we heard Alexis speaking, is what's that one thing you're like, if I had more time, quote unquote, right? I would be spending it doing this because I love doing this, or I love this, and if I could take care of myself, this is what I would be doing. And now, so say I have that thought, and I say, if I had this, what are some like practical ways that people could say, you know what, I'm gonna take time into my control now, and this time I'm gonna work smarter and not harder? Absolutely.
So yeah, so once you do determine what it is that you want to spend more time on, you obviously, in order to make more time, you gotta cut out things. So you have to look at your day and your responsibilities very reasonably. And if you're someone who has a really hard time with this, I think, you know, keeping track for like a week. I always tell people, I'm like, you know, you have your phone, track in your phone, like you don't have to say exactly what you're doing every hour of the day, but if you could just like, you know, half the day has gone by, what were the things that you were working on? Like what responsibilities were you working on? If you could track that for a couple of days, a week, and then look at it and go, what are these things are really priorities for you?
Yeah.
And what are things that like your heart's not really in, you know what I mean? Or you're only doing it because someone else asked you to, right? Because you're going to be able to find those things, you know, in your life.
I love that.
So, I mean, it's just a principle of productivity that like 80% of your net result only comes from 20% of your actions. So if you had a to-do list of 100 things in front of you right now, I know I could knock off 80 things. And as long as we knew what those 20 things were that were the most effective, we could prioritize those and then knock out the rest. So look at your list. What do you waste? Everyone knows. Everyone knows these, like, we say in like corporate, like low-hanging fruit, the things that would just be easy to cut off. You know what I mean? Like easy to get rid of. So look for those first and make the time. And then once you have that space, you can start filling it with the thing that you want to do.
Absolutely, I love that. And I think the principle that I always love to talk about is choice. It's being the chooser of your life. In order to do that, you have to say, this is my life, and I'm gonna choose how I spend my time, because this is my time.
Absolutely, and that's like actually sort of like a productivity, I guess like a terminology, psychology sort of thing. It's called having an internal locus of control. If you're someone who believes that you have control of your life and the choices you make every day, maybe you don't necessarily see how the little ones affect your life, but you know that the things you do every day, the things you choose to focus on, will lead you to your results. If that is the way you feel empowered, then you are going to be a more productive person, and you are going to be someone who goes after their goals. Like I can talk to someone on a call for like 10 minutes, and I'll be able to know whether or not you're going to be successful or not. Like if you have that internal or external locus of control. So if you're someone who has an external locus of control, you are probably one of those people who feels like, it doesn't matter what I do, I always get stuck in the same sort of traps, or, you know, the man's keeping me down. That's kind of like a really cliche sort of thing, you know, like other people's priorities, and like, well, I can't start, you know, my music career because I have a 9-to-5 job and my boss always makes me work late. You know what I mean? Like you can't do it because other people are stopping you. That's external locus of control, and that is like when they've done tests, those people who have that mindset are less likely to succeed. In fact, it's like guaranteed that you're going to fail because you've already set it up in your mind. So if you've noticed that you are that external locus of control where you feel like, you know, and talk to your friends too, like your friends and family, they know if you're the pessimist or if you're, you know, the one who feels in control of your life. So, you know, if you recognize that, it's very important to see it and then make the changes to really understand every choice you make. Like no one is holding a gun to your head, like most of the time, you know, in life. Like there's very few times where you are really being forced into a situation that really you have control of those 24 hours you have in a day and how you spend them, and where you spend your time is ultimately where people are going to see your priorities are. Yeah. So if you're like working overtime for no extra, you know, money at like a job, and you haven't had that conversation with your boss yet to say, look, we need to either up my, you know, salary, or I can't be doing this like long term. It's just not, you know, right or feasible. You know, you need to be able to step up and do that and kind of release that fear, so that you can make the time for yourself. Because let me tell you, the world will take what you're able to, you know, what you're willing to give.
Absolutely. I love that. Two things stuck out in what you said, and I think they're so important. One is self-love, right? Loving yourself enough to say, I am important. and what I love is important. And I know when my cup is overflowing, I can give people my overflow, you know, and I'm not drained constantly in doing that. And then just the second one is this principle of I can accept the things that I cannot change.
Yes.
There's certain things I can't change. And I love the serenity prayer and the courage to change the things that I can.
Yep.
So taking a true analysis of being honest with ourselves, like truthfully and lovingly honest, like what can I really change? What are those things that I could truly eliminate? I know this person may not like that I'm eliminating this, but they will like it a lot more when I'm in my best state and I'm in the highest spirits or whatever. But changing the things that I can, and most likely it's a lot of things, and it's within yourself, right?
Yeah. So I think it definitely starts within yourself, in your mind.
Yeah.
Is choosing, you know, that I'm going to be this person who has this internal control over my life, and that I'm going to make better choices.
Yes.
To give myself better results. And absolutely. Like,
I love that.
That's the way it goes.
And something you said earlier alluded to this. If you make a choice and it doesn't work out, it's okay. It's a lesson learned, and you keep making choices. And as long as you continually move forward, you're taking charge of your life. It's not like, oh my gosh, I totally failed. Like, my thing is, failure is, I mean, it's, people say it all the time.
Nothing fails. Like, there really is no failure. And it actually reminds me of a quote, and I cannot think of who this is attributed to at the moment, but I think the quote is, an expert is someone who has made all the possible errors in a very narrow field. It's like you've tried everything, so you know what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
So that's what really makes you an expert. Experience, actually putting yourself out there and like doing the thing.
Absolutely. And celebrating the fact that you did it.
Yeah.
Like we look at the things we don't get, but it's like you stepped on the field and you fought.
Yeah.
And even though you might have been knocked down, you actually stepped on the field when most people were sitting in the audience watching.
And then on top of that, like once you were knocked down, did you get back up, right? Because failure, to me, the only time you really truly fail is when you either don't start it, like you don't get on the field, like you were saying, or when you have a negative result, like you do something and it didn't work out, and then you stop. Like if you give up, then you failed.
Absolutely.
But like for me, it's like, yeah, like I had to try a lot of different things before I became successful. But if I had stopped after, you know, the first change I made and things weren't working out, you know, I wouldn't be here today. So you have to have that tenacity of spirit to just keep going and keep going at it. And, you know, I do think that there's, you know, a difference between, you know, throwing yourself at like a hopeless cause, but I think you know that, right? If you're like feeling like you're called to do something, it's what you want to do, then you need to go after it.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of times people do chase things for the wrong reasons, like money and maybe like fame or whatnot. But, you know, I think for the most part, people can tell, like, gut check.
Absolutely.
While you're in it.
And if had you not done that, or had you stopped after your first video or after this, all these people that watch your videos that are inspired to be more productive in their day, therefore helping their families or their careers or whatever that is, would not have had what you have to offer the world had you stopped. And what are all the things, if anybody's listening here, what are the things that you just don't know the influence you could have? And you may not be a YouTuber. You may have a passion to sew clothing, or you may have a passion to design, or whatever that is.
Or it could be like a passion to like be a stay-at-home mom. Like it doesn't have to be a thing. It's just like, you know what, I have like this loving, nurturing energy, and my calling is to stay at home and create a beautiful family and life, and like raise my children and like, you know, steward my family in the right direction.
I love that.
Like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Like
That's
I know
so
I
good.
always talk about girl bosses and things like that, but I always try to make sure people understand, like, I think that like being a homemaker, someone who stays at home, whether you're a mom or dad, you know, whatever the choice is for you and your family, like there's nothing wrong with that. Like that is a job in and of itself. And I think there's nothing wrong with being a person who says, my job is making sure my family is comfortable and successful.
And to me, a girl boss or any type of boss is someone that owns themselves.
That's it. You have that internal locus of control, and you're willing to keep going, and you have that tenacity that you're not going to stop.
Right. And a boss says, I'm in, like a boss, what do? They run things, right? So are you in charge of running your life? But if I'm doing something somebody else says, I'm not really a girl boss or guy boss or whatever you want to call it, I am just floating and going where the wind takes me. But a true boss is like, I want to be a homemaker. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm taking charge of my life, and I'm going to make.
And even I want to say too, like I think you can be a boss by saying as well, I'm going to go with the flow because right now I'm not sure, and I'm willing to just explore. I'm open to opportunity. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I've had definitely times in my life where it's like, I don't really know what I want, but I'm going to like dabble over here and dabble over there. And it's just like you said before, like not being afraid to put yourself out there. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm in control, I'm going to start this thing. You can just say, I want to go with the flow, and I'm open, and I'm going to, you know, start conversations with new people when I'm out and about, or I'm going to like accept invitations to certain things, you know, that are that are handed to me.
And you said something in one of your videos, and I love it. You said you don't have to start huge.
No.
You could start small. You could start with one thing and evolve from there.
Yeah.
Like you have an online
Big
shop.
things
you
have tiny beginnings.
Right. And you were saying something like you have an online shop, you run a YouTube channel, you have all this stuff going on for you. Yeah, you said in your video, you're like, I started with one thing.
Like I started with a blog, and then the next year there was a YouTube channel. And then there was that for a little while, just blog and YouTube channel for several years. Then there was a shop, and then, then there were courses. I started with one type of product, and then I moved into other types of products. Like, yeah, starting with one thing that's manageable. That's another thing about productivity is a lot of times people feel like if I'm going to do it, I have to do it big, or I have to do all the things. You can like start your whatever the path is. I was going to say launch as though it was a business, but you can start whatever the path is with one little step. It's just about making that one step, and then if you want to stay that way, fine, you can. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Or you can add on top. You can continue to grow, or you can say, you know what, I'm scrapping this and I'm going somewhere else because it's your life. You're in control of it.
I love that. So say I'm somebody that wants to take control of my life, and I'm like, okay, you know what, you're right. I want to take control of my time. I want to do that. I just want to pursue or find myself or whatever that is. What are some practical things good starting points for somebody to kind of own their life and take control of it?
So I think the biggest thing that a lot of people have is that they really feel like they think maybe they know what they want to do and they're not 100% sure. So I think that like the best starting point is sometimes to do like soul searching. And I always recommend like doing something like writing, like stream of consciousness, or keeping a journal, or just something where you're just writing maybe 5 minutes a day here and there to kind of keep track of like what your thoughts and your feelings are and what you want. Because like I said, in our busy world, right, we're like always keeping ourselves busy, like our own attention isn't even in ourselves. So if you can take time to just like write down like what your favorite things are and like, really get to know yourself, I think that's a great way to start to identify what it is you want. And then from that list, it's almost like, you journal to create a wish list of the life that you want. And then from there, you'll start picking up, okay, what's the first thing I can do? What makes the most sense? And I always tell people, like, if you have a list of projects that you're like going to work on, what's the one that is the easiest for you to accomplish, or requires the least amount of work, or it just feels like it's the step one to you? It doesn't have to feel like it's a step one to Henry or to Alexis. It has to feel like it's a step one to you, because it's your journey. So once you've identified like that wish list of things you want to do, pick one thing, start with that, get it done, go back to the list, pick another thing, and guess what? If something doesn't work out, you have a whole list of things to do. So you've got plan B through Z. You're good.
Absolutely. It's taking time for yourself.
Yeah.
Ultimately, right? And some people are
putting
like
boundaries around your time too. Something you were like kind of alluding to. We were dancing around this idea of, when you were saying like self-love and like honoring yourself, you want to make sure that you are putting boundaries around like what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, especially with your time. Like it says, like we said before, like it's okay to say no to people. It's okay to, go back to someone and say, look, I made a mistake. I really shouldn't have taken on this project. Like, I'm going to need help, or can I give it back to you? Like, I'm not going to be able to do the best job. And I get that there's certain situations, like maybe like a job that you couldn't do that at reasonably. But, if you're someone who volunteered for, something with like a community center sort of thing, you could go back and say, look, I took this on at a time and now things have changed, and I'm not going to be able to devote my time to this. It's just not the best use of my time. You have to let people know. You have to communicate it to people. And most of the times people aren't going to give you a hard time. Like they'll just be like, you know what? You're right. Thank you for being honest. Sometimes people give you a hard time, but then you just have to say like, it's just because they're disappointed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't control that either. So just be honest with people, make the room in your life, set those boundaries so that you're protecting your own time. You're honoring your own time.
Absolutely. I love that. I'm so excited about this podcast episode because there's so much to take from it. I guess looking back and looking at your journey and where you are now, and I know you're doing so much, and I know you've just gotten started. I know there's so much more that the world gets to hear from you, which is awesome. And just speaking with you one-on-one, I really am excited for that, because I feel like you give very tangible things, and I feel like people's lives do get better when they practice these things, right? It's one thing to hear them, it's another thing to practice them. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned in this process, going through kind of starting out? Because I know a job didn't work, or college didn't work out, quote unquote, right, for you at some point because of loans, like the finance industry. I guess like we'll just, because that the way you kind of described it, it seems like I didn't go to school, but no, I did go to college. I actually double majored in art history and political science, and I graduated in 3 years at a school that actually
84% of people took more than 4 years. So I got out early.
Awesome.
But then I had applied for a master's program that, unfortunately, because it wasn't backed by a U.S. institution, it was backed by a foreign institution. You really did your homework, Henry. I'm impressed. I had applied to this program that I really, really wanted. Like, I thought it was like the career path I really wanted. And I even applied for scholarships. I won like the maximum scholarship you could get, but there was still like, I needed a loan in order to pay for it. And it was right at the time, like in 2008, where like Bear Stearns and like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, like all the stuff was crumbling. And, you know, I remember like watching like the news and like one of the big banks like crumbled. And that day I got like an email from the bank that was like, we are denying your loan, sorry. And it was like, okay, well, I can't do this anymore. Like, what am I going to do? So it was like, okay, well, what I actually ended up doing was got a job and then started blogging to do the thing that I wanted to do in the first place. Like, I didn't let it stop me. Like, I wanted to go to this, you know, master's program, and I wanted to do like a publishing aspect. Like, I always thought I would be publishing. So I'm like, okay, well, a blog is kind of like publishing. So do that. So that's what I did.
That is
and
so
it worked
amazing.
out.
I love that, because sometimes we think something didn't work out the way we wanted it to, quote unquote, right? But it pushes you and it navigates you to now. You're blessing the lives of so many people. Had that worked out, I'm sure it would have been great too.
Yeah, it should have been great, yeah.
But just trusting that something bigger is at work in your life, and if you're going after something that doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that you, quote unquote, are just not meant to do something that you're supposed to do, but that like you're going to be navigated. Because I thought about that. I mean, in my life as well, you know, just the pathway is so interesting. But, you know, back to you, it's really cool to see that something that looked that way, you just said, okay, well, what can I do instead? You just shifted to, how do I control what I can control, which is me and not the economy, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely could not control the economy, and I definitely didn't have the amount of money that I needed to pay cash to go to the school. Absolutely. I definitely, just made up my own. I'm like, I'm gonna grab the bull by the horns and just keep going anyway. And, was it disappointing? Absolutely. Like, I was definitely someone who, like, if you had asked anybody who's going to grad school, Alexis is going to grad school, because education was something that's so important to me. But even though I couldn't pursue that in a formal sense, like, I'm someone who, even from that day, was educating myself. Like, everyone always asked, how do you learn so much about productivity? I read so many books, you guys. Like, what do you think makes a doctor? They read the right books that teach them the things, and then they go out and practice the medicine, right? Absolutely. I'm someone who's been reading about productivity for the longest time, studying it, and like studying all different aspects around it holistically, and then putting the things into practice and like creating courses and like working with my students and being like, okay, what worked, what didn't work, let's find a new solution. So like, that's how you get education.
I love that.
In life.
I took, like, hearing your story in that, and just knowing that, so many people are like, oh, this didn't work out the way I wish it would have. You just kind of said, okay, great, what can I do instead?
Yeah, what can I do instead? Like, a lot of times it's expectation that really sets us up for failure. In that instance, if I had said that, like, the only way I could be a publishing person was by going to this school, then I wouldn't be doing it, right? There's obviously other ways for you to do that. And it's like, okay, what's the next, like, again, what's the plan B? What's the next best option? If I'm not able to financially go to grad school, like, what am I going to do?
Absolutely.
Right? So it's like, I'm going to make it up myself. And I've also been someone who's kind of like the rebel that's like, I'll just make my own, right? Like, it's like, oh, you have not approved me for your school? Fine. I will make my own.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I do.
One of my friends, it's so funny, she's like, man, I'm applying for this job and I can't get it. I said, hire yourself.
Yeah. I'm like, is it something you could do? Like, and that was it. Like, after a while of people telling me, like, I really think you should be, like, working for yourself, I'm like, yeah, you're right, I should. And I just did,
I love that. And there's something in common that I see with people that find success is there's just keeping my eye on the prize. What's my goal? What's my objective? One of the things you teach is, what's your goal? Like, are you focused on that, or are you focused on something else? Like, is your eye stuck on what your objective is?
Absolutely. And I think, again, like, you don't always have to have, like, the most crystal clear goal to be going towards something. But I definitely think a lot of times people have a goal and they focus on the obstacles, like the problems, and they're like, okay, well, I want this goal, but this thing has come up, so I have to now, like, hurdle this. And yes, there are obstacles that will be put in your way, but I think that if you focus on what the problems are, you're only ever going to be chasing, like, putting out fires everywhere. But it's like, okay, well, if these are the types of problems that I'm encountering, for me, like, me strategically in my head, like playing Risk or something. I'm like, how do I go around them? How do I just completely circumvent the system? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, let's just get me to the end result. Like, I don't care what the problems are. I'm not problems, like, what do they say, 99 problems, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Everyone's got them, right? But if you're focused on the problems and like trying to solve them, there's going to be an endless stream of them. So you need to find a way to like hurdle them. Like you need to jump over them. Like you don't have to clean up the mess. You just can jump over them. And sometimes you may have to deal with them a little bit here and there. But for the most part, if you have this idea of like, let's not focus on the problems stopping you, like all the reasons why you're not going to get to your goal, then you'll be fine. Like as long as you don't focus on the problems too much.
I love that. It's just relentlessness, focus, and Tony Robbins says where focus goes, energy flows, right? So if you're focused on problems, you're growing this energy
That's
of
like
this problem.
That is a principle of vibration.
Right, exactly. And where are you vibrating, right? Are you like focused on this higher frequency thing and your energy is, this is where I am, this is what I'm focused on, and you just kind of elevate to that versus, and it's funny because when you're living in that frequency, if you want to call it, that vibration, things start coming to you easier too. So like the goal starts running towards you as you're running
welcome to
towards
my
the goal.
life. I mean, we haven't brought this story up yet, but I think you alluded to a little bit earlier, the reason we're making this documentary is because in October, I said out loud to someone that 2018 was going to be the year I stepped out as a thought leader. And for me, I thought that meant I should do more public speaking. And that very day that I said it out loud to someone so that I was like accountable, not just keeping it inside of me, I got an email from a very popular company that like I know you've heard of, asking me if I could come do a workshop for them like live. And so it doesn't really matter how that works out because that's still like, is in process. But the idea was that the day I said it out loud, like the universe, God, someone was like, you are on the right path, do this. And then so I was like, okay, good. So then a few months later, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a business mentor, and she was saying that she had a retreat coming up in LA. And I was telling her that I wanted to speak more. And she's like, you want to come do you want to do a workshop at this event? Like I'm bringing people in to do them. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do one. And booked my ticket right then and there, like on the phone call with her. And then again, didn't think about it, didn't do anything towards it. Arrive at this retreat, randomly get paired up with a person who became a friend and like partner here in this, my partner in crime, Alexis Giostra, who is the director and producer of this documentary. And it was literally, I was led directly to her.
It's beautiful.
And it was like literally like I said something, got a confirmation, didn't do anything in the meantime. I just went in flow. I just went in the flow. Like I knew what my goal was. And I knew that signs would be presented to me.
Absolutely.
Like you're driving on the highway and you're like, you're just like autopilot, you got cruise control on, you're like, that is the exit I need to take. The sign has been presented. I will now turn. So that is what happened and it led me right here. So you don't have to necessarily push. You can let the universe guide you if you're in flow.
Which is so much more productive and quicker than...
Absolutely. Was I writing emails and like pitching people on me going out and like creating one-page sheets about like what I could speak about? No, I wasn't. I was just like, this is what I want. You will present me the opportunity when it is ready.
Yes.
And I saw it. It's important to like seize the opportunities, right? Because your opportunities will come to you few and far between, really, like, so you want to, as soon as you see it and you're like, this is the one, you have to not be afraid. You have to just be like, I'm taking this one and I'm running with it.
I love that.
Until you get to the next one and you take that one and you run with it.
You run with that one and they all come together.
And then all of a sudden you've got this like life story of like, oh, look how my life came together so randomly and yet not really.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, it is all the little things that combine and they just build momentum.
Well, it's again another principle, right, is cause and effect. Everything has a cause, everything has an effect. Even if you can't see it, there is a reason why a light turned on in a building because someone flipped a switch somewhere. You know what I mean? everything has a cause and effect even if you don't see it. There is a greater power at work that is keeping everybody, in unison and everything, keeping the lights on,
I love that.
And when you put your intentions out there and trust and then you take the opportunities, because again, if you don't take the opportunities, they may not come again. They may not. I do think that they do tend to if you like in your heart are pure and you're like, oh, I just missed this one. But I do think it's very important that you seize the opportunities when you get them because they may not come as frequently as you want them to.
Absolutely. I love that. So many golden nuggets. So to see this documentary and to support it, the website is...
Yeah, if you go to www.productivityalchemist.com, it will lead you to whatever the current thing is that we're doing. So right now, as we're filming, the current thing we're focused on is the thunderclap. But then after the 13th, That's the day that our Kickstarter launches, because I don't know if I mentioned this, it is an independent film. So this is, being made by an independent female filmmaker.
Awesome.
And there's definitely not enough of those left in the world, in the world. And we need to encourage women to take on these roles. So, this is not something where we've got a backing of like a studio. So we crowdsourced. So we're doing the Kickstarter campaign.
Beautiful.
So if any part of this message resonated with you, you can go check out the Kickstarter campaign and, read more about the story. And there's so much more. Like, we only really scratched the surface here about like what we're going to be going into. But if you feel like it resonated with you, like definitely if you're called to give a donation, absolutely join us and help making this reality. Because that's the thing. It's, another principle, like you need to have help, right? No one does it alone. So we need to have the community really engaged, and hopefully we've given you guys some rewards that'll, stimulate some productivity for you, give you some bang for your buck, so you're not walking away empty-handed.
Absolutely, I love that. So productivityalchemist.com.
Yep.
Okay, so check it out. I'll put the link in the captions below, the description, so you can check it out and support. So just closing out, let's just close out. Any final thoughts that you're like, I just want to drop?
If anything, I think that really understanding that if you have that calling right now, getting started right now is very important. Like I do think, like, get started right now if you know.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, make the space.
Yes.
Make the space to go after it. And either way, you want to make the space. But if you feel like you want to do something and you're too busy for it, like, make the space and start doing it right now. You're gonna, like, what's the quote? Like, a year from now, you wish you had started today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't take any more time. Like, start now with what you have, and you will slow and steady wins the race.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you so much for having
sharing
me.
your wisdom. I will post all of your socials in the description, but do you want to just tell them where they can find you personally?
Yeah, so you can find me personally at Miss Trenchcoat all across the internet, Instagram, Twitter, all those things. That's my YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/Miss Trenchcoat. My blog is www.strangecharm.com, and if you want to check out some of my digital products to help you work smarter, not harder, that's over at thecharmedshop.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will see you next time.
See ya.
You just listened to Making It Happen with Henry Amar.
Subscribe, rate it 5 stars, comment below, and if anyone you know could use this, go ahead and share it. Until next time, see ya.